Hey there. Well, Merry Christmas. 3 days before Christmas. Ah, I decided, I've been really reconnecting with my mother lately, and I decided to make a movie about what my mother was trying to show me in stock trading because that was the best thing she ever did was trading. She was a very good trader, and she traded all through the depression of the 1930s, and she made enough to buy a house and start a business and move to Florida. So she did pretty good with that. My uncle told me she used to take the subway down to Wall Street and go into the brokerage office that was right on the ground floor of the building where his law office was. So he'd go down there and have lunch with her after she finished trading. She traded in the morning. Okay, so what she was trying to show me was basically uh, how price action interacts with pivots. And I believe it's possible that the word pivot was coined by Jesse Livermore, the legendary stock trader who died in the 1940s. So a pivot is a previous high or low. Oh, just for example, I was watching a movie that Noor made, who's a pretty good trader also. He's somebody to watch. And I got the idea to trade options from watching Noor in an option trade. I think Noor may be the best teacher of stock trading because he simply videos his trade, and you watch his trade move, and so you get the idea of what he's doing. Everybody else uses stationary charts to explain what they do, but he just shows you. It's like total transparency. you know? Anyway, but he was talking about a trade that he did. He didn't televise this one, and he was showing you how he watched this price action as it hit a line. It kept hitting this same line, went up to the line and fell away from it, and it did that like 4 or 5 times. And when it went through, he got into the trade. And I do this with options by putting a pivot on Standard and Poor, and then when it passes the pivot, I look at the option, which I've got a Fibonacci retracement drawn on, and I decide if I like the position of the option, and if the option seems like it's got life, and if it does, I get in. Uh, which can just as easily be done without a Fibonacci. Like I did that this morning. I did a trade without a Fibonacci, but it was sort of based on it. I can kind of feel whether that's there, like what that would look like, even if I haven't drawn it. So this is what my mom did. And the very first trade that I got into in my life was right before Meher Baba dropped his body, and I had saved up I guess I'd saved up around $800 to bring to India with me. I had my ticket paid for and my passport and everything. So I was all set to go, you know. And but I had this $800, and she called me up and told me to buy a stock, which I did. I bought $800 worth, and I sold it a few days later for $1,200. So I made money on my very first trade. That happened to be the top on that stock too. And I sold it because, you know, I had quit my job because I was going to India. So I left my job, you know, and that night, the next morning, the morning after I, you know, had my last day at work, my friends came in and they told me they'd gotten the cable that Baba had dropped his body. And they all were going to India immediately to view the body before it was interred. I didn't quite make it to India before the body was interred. I got there a couple of weeks afterwards. And I spent months going to the tomb every day. I was there for 2 months. And I would go in Baba's tomb every morning. And sometimes I would nap beside his grave. There was nobody there. You know, everybody who was going to be there for the viewing had left. And so it was just me and the tomb keeper and one of Baba's disciples who lived on top of that hill. You know, it's called, I think no, that's not Seclusion Hill. But anyway, it's it's called Upper Mehrabad, I think. And so there's a couple of buildings there. It was donated to Baba while he was alive, and he built the tomb while he was alive. And then he ordered this woman, Mansari, to never cross the tracks. So she lived there, and she never went across the tracks. The tracks were the Deccan Oil tracks. You know, Kipling wrote a ballad. Kipling wrote a poem called "The Ballad of the Deccan Oil," I believe, and the Deccan Oil came through there. So it was the tracks went across India. so there was this whole big part of India where Mansari couldn't go. She just basically stayed on top of that hill in her little hut, and she was amazing. She was an enlightened being. It was a tremendous privilege to be around her and know her as I would go up there every day. It was a wonderful time for me. It was a really watershed time because I made, you know, decisions that would govern the way I lived the rest of my life when I was up there with Baba. I knew this was the time to understand my life and what my life was about. And, you know, we have a skill in the Webb College called What's Your Life About? And my life has been about those same things that I made it about when I was with Baba during that time. Really wonderful time. So to get back to, you know, the price of eggs, so what my mother was, you know, my mother spent basically her entire life with me trying to make a stock trader out of me. So of course I didn't trade stocks, you know, in any great, you know, ferocity, because, you know, how kids are, you know, they don't want to do what their parents want them to do. It's really crazy. I hear so many traders tell in interviews about how they decided to be traders and their parents were so against it, but they did it anyway, and in my case, that was the complete reverse. God, too funny. I think that my mother may have known Jesse Livermore, just, to say hello to, because that was his era when she was there, and so was he. And but she definitely based her trading on his books. But also, I think that kind of knowledge, everybody who, the public, the retail traders, people who are not professional traders, one thing they all know about is this concept that if it goes past here, it will keep going. And, it's really something you can never get away from. And I think that what happened with Rob Smith, he was sharing about his life. He was the guy who invented what Sarah teaches, which he named the Strat. And all the Strat is really is Jesse Livermore, but it's made easy, because what Livermore did, see, he was a tape reader. He used to watch the tape and he would write everything down in a notebook, and he later he wrote a book which was published in the 1940s, and it's called How to Trade in Stocks. And it tells his method in a very straightforward and clear, easy to understand way. Never changed. And what he did was he would see where it went to here and it couldn't go any further, so it dropped. And so he would write this number down where it went to. And then when it dropped, he would write the other number down in another column. He ruled his notebooks and he made columns out of them. And he put this other number down. And then when it went up from there, he would put that number down. And when it didn't go any farther, and so on. And so he had this whole system of pivot points. And then he just said, well, when it goes through there, I buy it. And this is what the Strat is. And the Strat has, there's a Strat cheat sheet. You can Google it. And actually, there's a lot of them because a lot of people have published their own. Smith had a lot of followers, and Sarah was his sort of like his chief disciple, who had, she's the person everybody looks to about it. But there are a lot of traders who do the Strat who are better than Sarah probably. But the thing about Sarah is that she really has a commitment to teaching, and she makes it easy to understand because she teaches everything like on a third grade level. She sounds like a third grade teacher. She'll say things like, now you have to sell at your target where you're supposed to. Because if you hold it past your target, and of course what happens to people who hold past the target is that, either it goes to the next target or suddenly it tanks, because a lot of times when stocks hit a pivot and then pass through it and take out all the stops up above it, they, because all these people who shorted it have to buy it up there. So there's lots of buyers up at the high of any move. And once those stops have triggered, boom, down it goes. First they get all the shorts out and then they drop it. So that's the, the relationship of my mother like worshipped Jesse Livermore. I will say, she used to speak his name with reverence. You know, um, and he was an amazing person. At one time, he was thought to be the richest man in the world, um, and he died broke and by by his own hand. But I think what happened was that he got old and he probably got an incurable disease, and he didn't want to go through the a lot of people kill themselves because they don't want to live with the through the end of their lives. And Phoebe's father did that. He wanted to leave his kids something instead of spending it all on medical bills. And I don't blame him, but it hurt Phoebe that he killed himself. But I think he did the honorable thing. It's what a gentleman does. Anyway, okay, that being said, I know when enough is enough. And I hope people get something out of listening to this.